Hey guys, welcome back to Stage 4 Thriver, where we embrace the integrative approach to healing chronic disease. Today is a special day. I am going to share briefly my story with you guys, and then we're going to talk about a very important concept when it comes to mindset when dealing with chronic disease. I am definitely here to lift up whoever I can and to bring light into dark places. But the truth is that cancer sucks. And while it's extremely important to keep your eyes fixed on healing as the ultimate goal always, it's also completely natural to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. I've told my story many times, and if you know me in person or online at all, it's a story that you've already heard. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer on July 1st, 2022. Exactly 2 months later to the day, my then 4-year-old son, Wesley, was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of pediatric kidney cancer called diffuse anaplastic Wilms tumor. We went through everything together. We had chemo at a similar time. We both recovered at the same time. And then we both relapsed again at the same time. We both went through radiation at the same time, and by that I mean literally that we would drive to the building together and he would go in one room and I would go in another. So not exactly the best way to bond with your child, but nevertheless it was something that we definitely did together. It became very clear along the way that the chances of things happening the way that they did, it was almost statistically impossible. One example of this is when we relapsed, both my son and myself, our primary tumors were exactly the same size. A lot of things like that happened during that time that have changed my life forever. Unfortunately, Wesley succumbed to his disease on June 19th, 2023. Not long after that, I learned that I still had cancer. If you are watching this as somebody who has never met me and you don't know all the details, there are probably some questions that are coming up for you. One example I can guess is, were we exposed to something? Is that why both myself and my son got cancer at the same time? As far as I know, the answer to that is no. Cervical cancer is virally driven. Not always, but in my case it was. And Wilms tumor, while still largely a mystery, is genetic. And when I say genetic, I don't mean that it's something that is inherited from mom or dad. I mean that there's something genetic within Wesley. There was something very unique and specific to Wesley's genome. And while the vast majority of cancers are linked to lifestyle and toxins and decisions that we make, it seems that Wes was one of the very few examples of a true genetic cancer. At least at the time of this recording in May of 2024, that is my understanding. We'll see how that one ages. This diagnosis is exceedingly rare. Only a handful of kids in the whole world get it a year. So the odds are already so small, but what is truly remarkable is the compounded odds of his diagnosis and mine occurring at the same time. That, among many other stories and experiences, were proof to me that what was happening to my family at that time was not without meaning and not without purpose. It's important for me to share my story now in the early stages of growing this channel because Wesley is at the heart of this work. There are so many topics that I can't talk about without being able to include him. He was and is still central to not only my healing, but also my life. Perfect. Just like my 2 other children. It's also important for me to share the broader context of my story because it allows you to see where I've come from and what I have fought my way out of. I think it's important for anyone feeling defeated or doubtful in their own ability to heal. Let me paint a picture for you. I said goodbye to my 5-year-old son in June. I found out that my cancer had persisted through radiation and treatment in July. I already knew that mindset and stress negatively impact health outcomes. And now here I was being asked to continue battling my own disease while also carrying the grief of the loss of my son. Believe me, I was completely beside myself. I didn't think that it was too much. It was too much. I was at the bottom of Mount Everest looking up at this mountain, with no shoes, no guide, and I was being asked to somehow get to the top. There were moments that I had to laugh at the ridiculously dismal position that I was in. It was actually stunning. And I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. There were days where it could have gone either way. And there was a part of me that wanted to go down with that ship. If my son was going down, I was going down with him. I mean, that's what any good mom would want, right? Except I have 2 other children who need me. And I knew at that time that I had to find it within myself to keep fighting. I'm telling you all this because I want you to know that I know what it feels like to look straight into the abyss and not know whether or not you're gonna fall in. For me at that time, like I said, it could have gone either way. I was in a pit. There was a scripture that came to me around that time from a friend that really resonated with me. I held on to that scripture for dear life. It comes from Psalms 40 and it goes, "He drew me up out of the pit of destruction, out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God." I memorized and recited that scripture every single day. I became convinced that I was the writer, that I was the one being lifted out of the pit and being placed onto solid ground. I believed with every fiber of my being that I was going to have victory. I believed that fully, day after day, while I carried my burdens and kept my eyes set on liberation from this disease. And that, my friends, is what brings me to the second topic of this video, which is radical faith. By radical, I mean extreme, excessive, going beyond what others would do or what others would see as normal. I have come to understand that for me, it is a requirement for overcoming cancer. And it is something that I wish and pray for you to have as you walk on your own path. Faith and patience were the 2 attributes I held on to while I slowly chipped away at healing. I took it one day at a time. Faith was the friend who was walking alongside of me while I did a whole lot of other work. And all of it became a spiritual practice. So, my patience, my perseverance, my obedience, my consistency, all of the ingredients that you need to run the absolute marathon that is cancer. Faith was the fuel that made all of those other things possible. Without faith, there would have been no reason to persevere. Why push forward if you don't believe you're going anywhere anyway, right? I think sometimes we see faith as a means to an end. It's something that helps us get to a certain desire in our life. We have faith that the job that we want will come, the healing, the partner, the fill in the blank. But what if we got that all backwards? What if you've been placed in a situation where healing is the perceived desired outcome, but it's the conduit through which you discover and receive the ultimate gift, which is faith? Faith is beautiful in and of itself. It is an experience unto itself, meaning while faith often carries us from one season to the next, we are giving far too much focus on the end point instead of the road that led us there in the first place. I'm sure you guys have all heard the old adage that, life is a journey, not a destination. I believe faith is often like that. We experience the high and the joy of desired outcomes 1% of the time. We walk in faith the other 99% of the time. Therefore, faith is a way of being. It's a way of living. It says everything about who we are, and it's a choice. I want to share with you guys the most radical part of my radical faith. It's trusting not only in my own purpose, but in the purpose of my son. It's trusting God enough to believe that his life unfolded according to a plan that is bigger and more magnificent than human minds can imagine. That while Wesley was only here for 5 years, His life set in motion a most beautiful butterfly effect, touching hearts and lives in distant places, and leaving a positive impact here on Earth.
So I would like now to invite both Diane and Christy up to receive their award.
It's trusting that there is so much more than what we can see, and that he is whole and healed and restored, and that I will see him again. And when I do, he's going to give me a high five and say, "Look, Mommy, look at all the good things that we did."
I love
Believe in your healing. If you truly want to heal, believe with all of your heart that you will. Because even if you don't, without faith, would you have even tried? Would you have given it your all? Or would you be like where I was, in the pit? You can be lifted out of that pit. Cancer may still take my body someday. We do what we can. We make the choices that we can. We take the actions that we can, and then accept and surrender if the time comes. But even until the last minute, we can choose to have faith. It is the first healing modality, the most constant, and the last. I hope you find yours. Until next time, keep thriving.